All right, people, are you ready? Are you ready for something embarrassing that I'm about to share about myself? This is me, back in 2017 at a Jimmy Dore live show. I've heard people talk shit about the Jimmy Dore live shows, like, oh, he just does his failed stand-up, and he reads his tweets and rants about why Democrats are bad, but you know what? I gotta tell you, back in 2017, I had a good night. By the way, you can see right here in the bottom, this is glass. This is a bubbler. I had him sign my bubbler. God, this looks like a lifetime ago. This feels like it was so long ago. I feel like I'm staring at a different person. Hello and welcome to Alien Perspective. On this channel, I talk about leftist politics, political psychology, and autism. Subscribe for more. I actually became acquaintances with a guy who produced the Jimmy Dore Show for years. And according to him, that 2016 election broke Jimmy on an emotional level, where he said that Jimmy took Bernie's loss personally. He felt as if the Democratic Party had personally robbed him of the Bernie presidency, and I felt the same way, and it's part of the reason I connected to that show, and I know that a lot of other people felt the same way. Maybe you. And there's a substantial space online of people who feel personally robbed by the Democrats, and that's whom I want to speak to in this video. So if we broaden out to videos in that disaffected lefty space, and another channel that comes to mind is like Socialist MMA on Twitter. I think he's got another name for his YouTube channel, but it's people whose like primary thing is, I'm on the left and I hate Democrats, and it's trying to distinguish themselves ego-wise from, they are not those centrist liberals. And the point of these disaffected lefty videos is to put into your head the idea that even the most progressive people, even the AOCs, even the Bernies of the world, aren't good enough. They're corrupt, they're becoming part of the system, they're weak, they're not fighting for what they said they would fight for. And, most importantly, they aren't fighting for you. They betrayed you. You see this implicit ego messaging? The point is to make you angry and hopeless, and to perpetuate the creator's feelings of personal betrayal. And the point is to make you hate Democrats and to otherize liberals, to make them the hated enemy. And when I watched the Jimmy Dore Show, my feelings towards liberals and conservatives, they were basically the same. That's probably an overly charitable look at who I was in 2017, 18, 19. I probably hated the centrist liberals who were so brainwashed they robbed me of Bernie. I probably hated them more than anyone. Not proud to admit. When you're looking at politics through anger and resentment, that will over time make you less of a leftist. Being outraged by injustice, that's one thing. That's just a sign of like having a moral character. But the rage being the primary emotion through which you engage politically, it's not only unhealthy, it's not only bad for your mental health, but it will make you less of a leftist over time. Balance is important. Nuance makes you more left-leaning, psychologically speaking, and being able to properly regulate and address your emotions, particularly the negative ones, will make you more left. So let's talk more about that. Because I wanted to talk about why the Jimmy Dore Show appealed to me on a deeper level, a more personal level, before moving on to how I got out of this space and the benefits of leaving this toxic corner of the internet. Because see, a show's appeal is connected to where you are in your life. And I'm sure that anyone who has ever, I'm getting nods of approval on that. Anyway, I'm sure that anyone who has ever been in that disaffected lefty space will identify with me on so many of the levels I'm about to go through. So when I watched the Jimmy Dore Show, I was in a frustrated part of my life. My mom had just developed health problems. My mom and I have always been super close. God, we fought through so much together. And to see somebody who was so close to me, that was so important to me, face these health problems, and to myself feel powerless, was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to go through as a person. And that powerlessness is important because I also felt powerless because at the time I was romantically heartbroken and couldn't fix that. And I was also sexually frustrated, which is not great, especially for dudes. And I felt powerless in the job market. I'm sure anyone who's graduated university knows exactly what I'm talking about, because my mom had the health problems right as I graduated. And anyone that's just graduated knows just how difficult getting a job is right out of college, especially if you don't have connections. And if you've seen any of my autism videos, you can guess I don't have any connections. And speaking of, it's just flat out hard to get a job as an autistic person. You run into all the interview problems. By the way, if you're autistic, I encourage you to subscribe. If my comments section are any indication, my videos have helped some people. When you add up medical problems and money problems, that equals a lot of money stress. And I guarantee you that there is a strong correlation between occupying the disaffected lefty space and economic anxiety. A huge correlation. And shows like the Jimmy Dore Show exploit that in you. They exploit your pain, they exploit your anxiety, and they do it for money. See, when Jimmy rants for 22 minutes, at the time it felt like he was speaking to my anger, but it wasn't releasing my anger. It wasn't helping me process my anger or my frustration. It wasn't helping me move forward in life. And if I'll be honest, I think it stopped me from growing as a person during this time. I feel like I stagnated. I was in this cycle of frustration and stress, and the Jimmy Dore Show perpetuated that. So how did I grow out of this? At around the same time, we're talking late 2018, early 2019, several positive things happened. I met someone and started having consistent sex, and I got over the brokenheartedness. Yeah, she's right there. And we figured out what was going on with my mom's health. And not only did her health get better, and God, it's so much better to not be in the unknown, but we became better at managing it, and it felt like we had more power. And I'd started doing a ton of Bernie activism, Bernie 2020 activism, and that might be the most important one, because activism connects you with other people, and with good people, if you're in the progressive zone. You get a sense of togetherness that YouTube rants just can't give you. It makes you feel like you have some, albeit small, power to make the world a better place. And the fact that you're actually doing something gives you fulfillment in life. Plus, it gives you some lefty cred. It also makes you think less in terms of what an individual politician does. The Jimmy Dore Show and shows like it, they doomer pill you by cherry-picking examples of otherwise good politicians being disappointing. But if you think about politics less in an ego way, a less individualist way, ironically a less liberal-minded way, and more in terms of changing as many people's minds as possible in order to build a movement, a more actually leftist mindset, these people's rantings about AOC and the Squad and Bernie just not being enough, they all seem so asinine. Like, really? Our entire hope for change rides on a few members of Congress fighting every battle that YouTube hosts want them to fight? Like, really? We shouldn't treat politics so personally. I know I was super guilty of that. Jimmy treats the Democrats and the Squad like an ex-girlfriend that rejected him that he just can't get over. But change happens when enough people not only vote the right way, vote for the right people in office, but also become active outside of elections. And activism gave me hope. Seeing all these fellow young motivated progressives, how could you not feel like positive changes on the horizon? And that hope was really an antidote for me for growing out of the disaffected lefty space, which I see as kind of overlapping with Emotionally speaking, like teenage anger, young adult anger. And this space is primarily about making you feel like even the best, most progressive public figures are shit. So there must be no hope, so don't even try, just shut up and watch more YouTube. Now don't get me wrong. The Jimmy Dore Show also turned me off of the Jimmy Dore Show, because I remember just as the campaign was starting to heat up, we're talking early 2019, he started advocating for Tulsi Gabbard, who has taken a very similar path that Jimmy has over to the far right. And I'm like, Jimmy keeps saying that Medicare for all is his number one issue. Tulsi is not for Medicare for all. And Bernie's clearly the champion. And my bullshit detector started going off. Now, as I became more connected to other people, an important thing more online lefties could use, being connected to other people, my priorities changed too. They grew up. See, before I had my litmus test, my special litmus test, that if you don't pass a number of these, you don't get my coveted vote. This is something that activism changes. See, a lot of people in this space don't understand this, but your vote isn't that precious. It's one vote in a country of 330 million people. Don't be so egotistical. When you actually do activism, you realize that as important as voting is, and you should all vote, seriously, everyone should vote, it is but one form of political expression. When all you do is vote, whom you vote for defines your political identity. We're getting back to political psychology. How can I really be a leftist if my only political engagement is voting for centrist, liberal, corporate-friendly Democrats? But see, when you knock on hundreds of doors, whom you vote for is just one piece of your political identity. And your priorities move from, my vote is a statement that validates my identity as a leftist, to my vote is about maximizing human well-being and minimizing harm. Which I hope we can agree, is a much healthier, more realistic, less egotistical mindset towards voting. And I think that it's a mindset that avoids what so many disaffected lefties do, which is to set yourself up for disappointment, which feeds the cycle of rage and disaffection. Getting out of the disaffected lefty space made me a better leftist. Engaging as a leftist should be about maximizing your positive effect for the sake of all of us, rather than signaling to other people that you're one of the pure ones. The Jimmy Dore Show, and those like it, at least what the Jimmy Dore Show used to be, is that they frame Medicare for all as the dogma that we must achieve or bust. But the real goal of leftism is about maximizing human well-being and freedom. Like, why do we support Medicare for all in the first place, right? Even if the best we can possibly get in this way too conservative country that we live in, even small change is a positive, because even small changes help people's lives. When Republicans are in power, they hurt more people. If you don't think that's a terrible outcome that should be avoided, you aren't as much of a leftist. Opposing the Democrats because they robbed us of Bernie, or being mad at the Squad for not coming on Jimmy's show. I mean, being mad because they won't fight every battle a YouTube show host wants them to. It's just a bunch of ego bullshit. That's not helping us get to the goal of maximizing human well-being. Ego-based anger driving your politics is not a leftist framework, and will drive you further to the right. Just look at the trajectory of the Jimmy Dore Show. And it ultimately makes the left less effective at achieving our policy goals. And perhaps most importantly, it hurts your mental health. If you're still in the disaffected lefty space, first, credit to you for getting this far into the video. It really does take courage to challenge yourself, to challenge your preconceived notions, because a lot of what I'm talking about is how our emotions drive our political engagement, and people get very defensive when you challenge this. I really hope this video sparks some personal growth, because I'll tell you this, I wish I'd had this message. I wish I'd had this message back in 2017, back in 2018, because I would have grown faster as a person as well. And frankly, I hope you grow because we need you. We need you active. We need you not to be hopeless and disengaged. And I hope to see you in the next video.